Okay, let's have a look at service accommodation compliance. Now, what I mean by this is both your business compliance and what the property actually needs to be compliant. Okay, so let's dive into this straight away. There's going to be a lot of technical information coming through, but don't worry, I will give you this document. It'll be underneath this video, so you can actually have a look through this, make sure you are compliant. So, gas safety. An annual gas safety certificate is required. Just like with any buy-to-let property, HMO property, there is a gas safety certificate that's needed every year. Electrical safety, so your EICR needs to be in place. That's done every 5 years. PAT testing, now this is usually every 6 to 12 months, dependent on the council. Realistically, 12 months is fine. Some councils do like it to be done every 6 months, but because this is technically an unregulated market at this point, when we're talking about service accommodation, there's no set in stone rules for this. But if you aim for every 6 months, and if you do it every sort of 8 months, you should be fine. Emergency lighting. So this is one that has changed over recent months and over the past year, actually. So, as of October 2023, regulations have been introduced mandating enhanced safety measures for holiday lets. This includes Airbnb, so we fall into this. So, guest pathways are illuminated during power outages. Failure to meet the standards will result in significant penalties. Now, at the moment, there is no real, that I know of, way of enforcing this or checking in on this. I think it's a case of if something goes wrong, then you could get in trouble. This could potentially be changing with the registration and licensing that the government have been talking about now for well over probably 18 months. But when you're talking about emergency lighting, you don't have to go in and fit, permanent lights into the unit. You can have these on the back of there. There is a 3-pin plug, and these just plug into the normal sockets in your walls. Now, what happens is when there is a power outage, this unit loses power, and it tells this to turn on. Very, very easy, very simple. Okay, and then it also comes out, and they can use it as a torch to get themselves out. Now, where you need them, the placement of these is very, very key. So, escape routes. Okay, so they all have to be illuminated. Stairwells, changes in floor level. So some houses have, a landing, then one more step up somewhere along, or in the kitchen, you step down into the kitchen. There needs to be a light in that area. Exit doors and final exits, and then fire safety equipment. There needs to be a light around there. So if you've got for example, fire extinguisher next to a door, then there should be an emergency light next to that to illuminate where the fire extinguisher is. You can also put, a sticker on the wall that glows in the dark to show where the fire extinguisher is. So there's that. Then you've got fire alarms. So there is difference between small units and large units. At the moment, most of the information we have is for small units. That could change now over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. But interlinked smoke alarms or fire alarms can be hardwired or wireless. Okay, but they have to be linked to each other. Now, the government recommends that they are all mains powered, right, with a standby power supply consistent of a battery. So if the power to the house goes, then there's still a battery to power it. They are allowing at the moment sealed battery alarms, right? And it's got it there, grade F1 alarms. They are accepted in short-term accommodation, but only for short-term. In 5-10 years' time, you can't still be having those. It's generally speaking, we'll get away with it until about 2026, 2027, and then we need full interlinked fire alarms. Now, they're suggesting, as I said, that they have to be mains powered, but they can be wireless. They don't need to be linked by a hard wire. Okay. Now, that is something to consider when you're looking at units. Now, the power supply is fairly simple. You can take a power supply from the lighting main, but you can't do that. You will need a trained electrician to do that. So you are looking at a couple of £100 to get that implemented. But for the if you factor that into your numbers at the start when you're taking on rent-to-rent units, okay, we're going to have to put fire alarms in here. How much is it going to cost? And then right now we've probably got about 2.5, 3 years to go until we actually need that. Maybe if you aim for 2, so okay, it's going to cost me £300, but I've got 2 years to do that. At least you know what you need to do. Fire risk assessment. You must do a fire risk assessment. Now, you can pay for this to be done, or you can technically do it yourself as long as you are a competent person. Now, there is no definition of competent person, but as long as you have a general idea of what's needed within a fire risk assessment, and you can find all that out on Google, then you can do this yourself. And a copy of the fire risk assessment should be displayed in your property, okay? Ideally in the information folder that you give to guests, if you have one. If not, have it displayed somewhere within the property. And then fire equipment, so a fire blanket and extinguishers should be located in the kitchen. And I also like to put an extinguisher on each level, basically. Just, it's not a mandatory at the moment, but it feels like the right thing to do. Your exits, so not needed in all council areas, but thumb turn locks. If you don't know what a thumb turn lock is, it's one that you need a key to get into the property, but it's just got a little thumb turn on the back of it rather than needing the key. Basically means that if something goes wrong, you haven't got to go hunting for your keys to get out of the house. You can just unlock the house and get out, right? I always put those in every single property that we have. It's just safer, a lot safer. Now, fire doors. This is something that has caused a lot of sort of differing opinions, shall we say, within the industry. Now, the guidance for fire in holiday lets requires that every door that opens onto a fire escape route, i.e. the landing, the hallway, the stairwell, must be certified fire door, or at least a nominal fire door. Now, what they mean by nominal is it can't be a composite door. It can't be, we've all seen them where they're light as hell and they're just full of cardboard with just a veneer cover. It can't be one of those. But if it's a solid door, a wooden door, or it's actually rated for 30 minutes or more, then that is enough. They're not expecting us to go in and retrofit every single property with a solid fire door. Okay, as long as it can comply to half an hour, then we are absolutely fine. Okay. Now, it is difficult to identify that when you're just looking at door. I'm looking at one now. It just looks like a white door. I don't know, but I can do a bit of research into it. I can look on the edges, see if there's any code or anything to do with that. I can give it a tap, see how solid it is. If it's a solid door, we're okay. If it's completely, it's just got a cardboard core, we're not really, that shouldn't really be sufficient. So we need to change the door. Again, we can factor that into the numbers. Okay, we need 5 doors. Okay, it's going to cost this amount, and we've got 3 to 6 months to do it, right? So you need to be sort of looking at these things, and this is where we potentially can get ahead of the competition. And particularly if the government do bring in the changes, the regulations, the licensing, and everything else, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't prepared to do that. They're not prepared to put the money into the fire alarms and the fire equipment and the doors and everything else, and they will exit the market. Whereas those of us that have already planned it, we already know it's coming, we will be able to survive and prosper, shall we say. Okay, then fire safety notices. So this should be displayed in every single property, and there is a copy of the notice that you should put up, okay, just for you guys. So take that, copy it, print it, stick it up in your property. Okay, so that is a very, very brief overview. Essentially, treat it as if it's a licensed HMO and you will be absolutely fine. Okay, if you go to those extents, they're never going to ask for more than HMO standard. Okay, so if you treat it like that, you will be absolutely fine. But as I said, you don't need fixed emergency lighting. You can have plug-in emergency lighting, and the doors do not need to all be solid fire doors. Okay, so treat it as a HMO and you'll be fine. But what's to come? Now, the UK government is currently considering changes to planning regulation, may include mandatory registration of serviced accommodation, and they are potentially looking at planning use change. None of this has been talked about since the new Labour government has come in, so we don't actually know what their stance is on it. I can tell you that, in my opinion, the reason they're doing this is to make it less appealing to have second homes, and just to get a grip on an industry that is extremely underregulated. Okay, I would never stay in a hotel that didn't have a fire alarm or fire doors or a fire plan and wasn't safe. So why would I expect people to stay in other accommodation that is not regulated and safe? So I actually think it's a good thing. I also think, as I said earlier, it will make a lot of people leave the market, which will then mean our profits and our demand increases. So I think it's a very, very good thing. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be scared of it. It's just something that we have to navigate. I hope this all makes sense. Any questions on any of that, let me know, and I will see you in the next video.